happy to be the first black bitch on television.
Oh, I want to be the first black bitch on television, I said. You know why I came up with that, really? Because after Julia, I was offered every nice role.
Diahann Carroll's private diaries stayed hidden until 2020. Her daughter discovered them after her death and couldn't believe what she read. The star of Julia had been living a double life. While she played the perfect single mother on TV, she was failing as one in real life. She worked 12-hour days and missed everything important. The diaries reveal why she stayed in abusive relationships. They show her deepest regret about her daughter. What she wrote about the price of fame is devastating. These pages expose the lonely truth behind Hollywood's first black leading lady. Diahann Carroll was born as Carol Diane Johnson on July 17, 1935, in the Bronx. Her parents, John and Mabel, moved to Harlem when she was still a baby. Back then, Harlem was struggling. The Great Depression had crushed the city. Almost half the people in Harlem had no jobs. Her father worked as a subway conductor and earned around $40 a week. Her mother stayed home, trying to hold the family together, while the world outside was falling apart. When Diahann was just 18 months old, something happened that left a mark on her heart forever. In 1937, her parents left her in North Carolina with an aunt and disappeared for over a year. They were trying to find work, but to a little girl, it felt like they abandoned her. That deep feeling of being unwanted never left. She said many years later that this wound played a part in why she had 4 broken marriages. Even as a child, Diahann had a special kind of grace. She sang in the church choir at Abyssinian Baptist Church when she was only 6. Her voice would rise through the streets of Harlem like it had something important to say. By the time she was 10 in 1945, she had already started modeling for Ebony magazine. But that same year, the pain came back again. Her parents left her once more, again in North Carolina, chasing better jobs. She was just 10 and felt like a package no one wanted. She wrote about this pain in her memoir and spoke about it in interviews decades later. Even though her aunt tried to comfort her, that wound never really healed. That same year, something amazing happened. She won a scholarship from the Metropolitan Opera. Only a few black children ever got that chance. She sang in Italian and German and left everyone stunned. But her mother pulled her out just weeks later. She didn't want her daughter to lose a normal childhood. Diahann later said it broke her heart. She believed she might have become the first black opera star at the Met if she had stayed. Instead, she kept training. She took music classes and sang in church. She modeled for Ebony and made about $100 a week by the time she was 15. Life was still hard. She faced rejection constantly. She was told she was too dark. She was told she didn't fit the roles. But she didn't stop. From 1949 to 1954, she studied at the High School of Music and Art in Manhattan. It was a beautiful old building that looked like a castle. She studied singing and acting with other young talents like Billy D. Williams. She changed her name to Diahann Carroll during that time because she wanted something that stood out. Even in this creative space, she still felt the sting of racism. Most black students weren't expected to succeed, but she kept going. Then in January 1954, when she was just 18, everything changed. She went on a TV show called Chance of a Lifetime. She sang her heart out and won the contest, beating ventriloquists and comedians. She won $1,000, which would be over $11,000 today, and got a contract and club bookings. But behind the scenes, producers hesitated. They didn't want to show a black girl on stage too much. One even said, audiences aren't ready for a colored girl headlining. But she proved them wrong. At 15, she had already started modeling seriously. It was rare to see a black girl in magazines, but she kept getting rejected by agents who said she was too dark. She still kept walking forward, becoming one of the first to break through those walls. At 18, in 1953, she sang in Harlem's top nightclubs and earned $400 a week, an incredible amount for a young black woman. She sang songs like "Why Was I Born?" and her voice left people speechless. But even then, she had to face nightclubs that wouldn't allow black audiences or forced her to use back entrances. That same year, she signed with Atlantic Records. She released her first album in November 1955. It was called Diahann Carroll Sings Harold Arlen. She sang songs like Over the Rainbow, with such emotion that reviewers praised her phrasing. But the album didn't sell well. Only about 10,000 copies were sold, and she got paid just $2,000. Most of the promotion money went to white singers. Black music was called race records, and many radio stations refused to play it. By 1957, she made it onto television, appearing on The Jack Paar Show. She was paid $500 per episode, which wasn't bad, but still less than what white stars got. They gave her strange roles, making her play exotic characters or foreign princesses, and it made her feel small inside. In a sketch from that year, she had to pretend to be an island beauty. She later said those roles hurt her because they made her feel invisible in a world that only wanted her to look a certain way. In 1954, she got her first movie role in Carmen Jones. She was just 19. She played Mert, alongside Dorothy Dandridge and Harry Belafonte. But after filming, she found out they had replaced her singing voice with someone else's. She hadn't agreed to that. It was a common thing they did to black performers, and it made her feel erased. It wasn't personal, they said, but it felt personal. In 1959, she appeared in Porgy and Bess. The set was full of tension. There were separate bathrooms and dining rooms for black and white people, even though the cast was all black. She didn't cause a scene. She stayed quiet to avoid losing her job. But it burned inside. Even the opera itself sparked arguments. Some said it made black people look poor and violent. She felt all of that while she acted, and it never left her. By 1960, she was done being offered maid roles or dancers. She had already won a Tony Award by 1962, becoming the first black woman to win Best Actress in a musical. But still, Hollywood tried to box her in. She turned down roles that felt insulting. She once told Congress in 1962 that the racism in her industry was like a nightmare. Even when she got a lead role in Hurry Sundown in 1966, it didn't change how deeply the system was stacked against her. When she was just 19, she had also starred on Broadway in House of Flowers, written by Truman Capote. At first, it seemed like a dream, but the show collapsed. It ran just 165 performances and closed in 1955. She was left with debt and sadness. She sang in clubs across New York and Las Vegas just to survive. It nearly broke her, but she kept climbing. Then came No Strings in 1962. She played a black fashion model in love with a white writer. It was a bold story set in Paris, and she made history again. The show won her that Tony Award, but the hate came with it. Some people sent threats. Some theaters refused to run the show. One letter called her a race traitor. She didn't back down. She sang a song called The Sweetest Sounds in that show, and it became a jazz standard. But even with her success, she was paid $2,500 a week, half of what her white co-star made. She had to fight just to get a small raise. And still, she didn't get any royalties when the song hit the charts. She later spoke out about how unfair it all was, and her voice helped other black performers speak up too. In 1963, she took No Strings on tour. They went to 12 cities, even overseas. In Europe, crowds loved her. But in the American South, things turned dark. In Atlanta, hotels wouldn't let her stay. In Birmingham, a show was canceled after bomb threats. In one town, she had to sleep in a church basement because no one would take her in. She used some of her tour earnings to pay for therapy. The racism was that heavy. Still, she didn't quit. When Diahann Carroll first appeared on television as Julia Baker in 1968, it felt like a door had finally opened. She wasn't playing a maid or a background character like so many black women were forced to do. She was the star, a smart, elegant nurse, a single mother raising her child after her husband died in Vietnam. This wasn't just a TV show. It was a moment in history. The show was called Julia, and it premiered on NBC on September 17, 1968. For 3 seasons and 86 episodes, until March 23, 1971, Diahann Carroll became a part of American households, drawing in as many as 40 million viewers every week. But while the show made history, it also stirred up controversy. Some people loved how modern and polished it looked. Others, especially during the heated times after the deaths of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy in 1968, felt the show ignored what was really going on in America. They said it made life look too easy for a black woman, and it didn't show the pain or struggle that so many families were going through. Some even boycotted the sponsors. But despite the criticism, Diahann's beauty and style became iconic. Her clothes, designed by William Travilla, were so admired that they were turned into sewing patterns for fans to copy at home. That same year, she won the Golden Globe for Best TV Star, Female. But even then, it was clear she was being used as the one acceptable face of Black America in a white industry that didn't want to tell more real stories. In 1969, just 1 year after the show began, she was nominated for an Emmy. She competed with big stars like Elizabeth Montgomery and Hope Lang. But behind the scenes, Diahann was fighting her own battles. NBC told her to stay away from anything too racial, worried it might upset white audiences. She didn't agree. She wanted the scripts to be honest. She argued with producers and pushed back against anything that felt fake. Years earlier, in 1962, she had even spoken out at a congressional hearing, saying that in nearly a decade, she'd only been in 2 Broadway plays and 2 TV shows, despite all her talent. The truth was, she was tired of pretending things were fine. She wanted change, even if it made people uncomfortable. As her fame exploded from 1968 to 1971, so did the attention. The show led to dolls, posters, and even paper cutouts of her character. In 1969, a Julia doll line was released and made millions. Fans loved her, but not everyone did. She began getting death threats. Some people hated seeing a black woman in a strong, respectful role. She needed bodyguards. Hate mail flooded in. The same thing had happened back in 1966, when she made the film Hurry Sundown, and the Ku Klux Klan sent threats to the cast. Now, it was even worse. Her co-star, a young boy named Mark Kopage, who played her son, said Diahann took the brunt of it all. Sometimes the threats got so serious that events had to be canceled. All of this took a toll. While filming Julia, she was also raising her daughter, Suzanne Kay, who was born on September 9, 1960. Diahann had divorced her first husband, Monty Kay, in 1963, and now she was doing everything on her own. She admitted in her 1986 memoir that the long filming days, which often started before sunrise, tore her life apart. In 1968, she remarried a man named Freddie Glusman, but it ended quickly and painfully due to abuse. By the end of Julia's run in 1971, she had done 86 episodes and gone through 4 marriages. She had become a superstar, but inside she was exhausted. Her childhood in Harlem, raised by a subway conductor father and a nurse mother, had made her strong. But fame came with a heavy price. Even after Julia, she kept pushing. In 1974, she released a music album called Diahann Carroll. It was soulful, emotional, and showed her incredible voice. Her cover of Killing Me Softly stood out. Though it only reached number 89 on the R&B charts, the album earned her a Grammy nomination in 1975. She didn't win, but it was powerful to see her shine again, especially since she'd been quietly struggling with being boxed in as the perfect black woman. That same year, she toured Europe in a cabaret show that took her to cities like London, Paris, Berlin, and Amsterdam. The shows were deeply personal. She told stories from her past, even painful ones, and made people cry. In Amsterdam, fans were so emotional that a near riot broke out after she opened up about her divorce from Monty Kaye. The tour brought in $200,000, but the emotional toll was so intense, she ended up canceling some shows in Rome due to anxiety. In 1972, she performed with Duke Ellington, the jazz legend. Their concerts were magical. But behind the curtain, Ellington was sick. She didn't know at first. During rehearsals, he coughed up blood but kept going. When she found out he had cancer, it devastated her. He died in 1974, and the loss stayed with her. She said he had called her his muse. After his death, she struggled with grief and had to go to therapy. That same year, in 1974, she made her biggest comeback with the film Claudine. She played a poor single mother in Harlem, trying to raise 6 kids while dealing with welfare inspectors and a blossoming romance with a garbage collector, played by James Earl Jones. The film came out on April 22, 1974. It was raw and real, and nothing like her clean-cut image from Julia. She almost didn't take the role. She was afraid of being judged, but she threw herself into it. She visited real welfare offices, talked to over 30 single mothers, and watched how they were treated. Some waited 8 hours for just $250 a month. The stories hurt her deeply. She couldn't sleep. She had panic attacks. She even lost 15 pounds from the stress. But her performance earned her an Oscar nomination for Best Actress at the 1975 Academy Awards. She was the first black woman nominated in a lead role since Dorothy Dandridge in 1954. Still, some people hated the film. Activists said it made poverty look glamorous. Protests broke out. Flyers were handed out calling it Uncle Tom Cinema. But Diahann stood by it, saying it gave voice to real women who had been ignored. In January 1975, she won the NAACP Image Award for Claudine. She used her speech to call out Hollywood's racism. She said it was time for real stories, not just maids or prostitutes. The speech moved so many people that NAACP memberships rose by 20% that year. But behind her strong words, she still doubted herself. In her diary, she wrote about feeling like a token, like she didn't deserve it. Therapy helped, but the pressure never went away. She went on to perform at Carnegie Hall in 1976, drawing a sold-out crowd. But while she dazzled in a sparkling Bob Mackie gown, she only made $10,000. Just 3 years earlier, Barbra Streisand had earned 5 times that amount for a similar show. The difference in pay showed how deep the bias ran. Diahann kept going, though. She kept fighting. In the 1980s, she joined Dynasty and played Dominique Devereaux, a bold, glamorous character. But even there, things weren't easy. Producers considered writing her off early. Rumors of her being difficult started spreading. She stayed on the show until 1987, but never got the spotlight she deserved. White co-stars were paid more and given better stories. When she finally left, it was quiet. Diahann Carroll married Monty Kaye in 1956. He was a record producer and helped guide her early career. But things were not peaceful. Her own father refused to come to the wedding, which was held in Harlem. That same year, she was already becoming a rising star, but her personal life was full of hidden pain. In 1960, she gave birth to their daughter Suzanne, who would later become a journalist and screenwriter. From the outside, it seemed like a picture-perfect family. But behind closed doors, Carroll was living a double life. Since 1959, she had been secretly involved with Sidney Poitier, even while still married to Monty. By 1963, her marriage was falling apart. Monty had been unfaithful, and Carroll's own affair only made things more tangled. She tried to go to New York University to study psychology, hoping to find peace, but she left school to follow her dream in music. After the divorce in 1962, she admitted that she was left feeling broken and emotionally lost, trying to balance her growing fame with her collapsing personal life. At the time, interracial couples like hers were under heavy scrutiny, and the pressure only made things worse. Years later, she said that chasing her dream sometimes came at the cost of her bond with Suzanne, though they made peace later in life. Her 9-year affair with Sidney Poitier began on the set of Porgy and Bess in 1959. Both of them were married at the time. He told her he would leave his wife, Juanita Hardy, and he even bought Carroll a ring and a large apartment on Riverside Drive. Believing him, she divorced Monty Kay in 1962, but Sidney changed his mind. He locked her out of the apartment and told her to pay him back for it. Carroll was heartbroken. She described herself as desperate and completely under his control. When she tried to move on and dated other men, Sidney lashed out. He called her awful names, cursed her, and acted as if she belonged to him. The emotional abuse left her so depressed that she once considered ending her life. She wrote about this pain in her 2008 memoir, The Legs Are the Last to Go. They worked together again in Paris Blues in 1961, but the relationship finally ended in 1968, when Sidney refused to let her daughter be part of their future. Still, they eventually became friends again, and Sidney later praised her intelligence. Their love story was full of promises and heartbreak, all happening while the civil rights movement was unfolding and the world was watching. In 1964, Sidney won the Oscar, but their private lives were crumbling quietly behind the cameras. In 1975, Diahann Carroll married again. This time, it was to a young Jet magazine editor named Robert DeLeon. She was 39 and he was just 24. They met when he came to interview her and quickly fell into a whirlwind romance. They married in secret, but Jet published the photos anyway. From the start, things felt unstable. He quit his job and followed her around the country. There were constant fights, sometimes turning violent. Carroll said he once booked a seat next to her just to watch her after an awards show. He struggled with her fame, and she struggled with his jealousy. On March 31, 1977, just 2 years after they married, Robert died in a strange car crash in Beverly Hills. Some people whispered about foul play, but it was ruled an accident. Carroll was left shattered. She later admitted that this relationship made her realize she kept repeating painful patterns. It sent her into therapy, including sessions where she explored her trauma using LSD. But she used her grief to grow, coming back to her career stronger, though deeply scarred. In 1997, Diahann was 62 years old when she found out she had breast cancer. It was a huge shock. She had no family history and took great care of her health. But a routine test showed a small tumor in her right breast. She had surgery and went through 9 weeks of radiation while still working. The treatment wore her down. At one point, her immune system got so weak that she caught chickenpox and skin infections. She kept pushing forward, saying she had always been a problem solver. Behind the scenes, the pain of her past relationships made her feel even more fragile. She had been married 4 times, and each left her feeling more alone. At times, she admitted feeling suicidal, but she slowly began healing and turned her pain into action. By 2001, she was encouraging women to get checked, and she even inspired 3 hotel workers to get screened. 2 of them were diagnosed early and got help. She believed in working with her doctors closely, like a team. Carroll stayed cancer-free for many years. She passed away in 2019 at the age of 84 due to complications from the same disease she had once fought so hard to beat. Even during her darkest years, she kept acting in shows like Julia and Dynasty, using her pain as fuel. Her hard work and courage were finally honored in big ways. On April 3, 1990, Diahann received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. It was placed at 7005 Hollywood Boulevard and celebrated her singing and acting. Some reports wrongly said it happened in 1992, but it was 1990. She had already made history in 1962 when she won a Tony Award for No Strings, becoming the first Black woman to win Best Actress in a musical. In 2011, she was inducted into the Television Hall of Fame. Viola Davis said Diahann taught Black women they could be glamorous, smart, and proud at the same time. But it hadn't been easy. In 1954, on Broadway, she was once humiliated when co-star Pearl Bailey turned her face away during Carroll's solo, trying to steal the spotlight. Still, Diahann kept going, and her strength inspired a whole generation. In 1968, she starred in Julia, becoming the first Black woman to lead a TV show where she wasn't a maid or servant. Her influence helped open doors for the stars of today. In 2008, she shocked readers with her memoir, The Legs Are the Last to Go. She wrote about the pain behind her beauty. She had gone through many plastic surgeries and felt regret about changing her face. She said it came from fear of aging in Hollywood, which constantly judged women. She also told the truth about her 4 failed marriages, including one to Freddie Glusman in 1973 that ended in weeks because of abuse. There were also painful memories of her relationship with actor Don Marshall. She said her focus on her career caused distance with her daughter. And she shared a story about a cover shoot where a water pill made her body swell, and she had to wear the photographer's shirt. The book became popular because it was so raw and honest. She admitted that the glow of fame came with deep loneliness. She once got engaged to David Frost in 1972, but broke it off and married someone else in a rush. That decision haunted her for years. Readers were stunned to learn how much she had hidden behind her elegance. When Diahann died on October 4, 2019, many people had no idea she was still battling breast cancer. She had kept it private. After her death, tributes poured in. Oprah Winfrey called her a forever legend. Ava DuVernay said she left diamonds behind for others to follow. Viola Davis said Diahann showed Black women they were queens. Debbie Allen and Lee Daniels both praised her strength and elegance. She had been the first Black woman to star in a non-stereotypical TV role with Julia, which aired from 1968 to 1971. She won a Golden Globe and earned 5 Emmy nominations. In private, she had once said she wasn't sure Julia really mattered, worried it was just a token role during a racially tense time. But history proved her wrong. She kept breaking barriers, from her Oscar-nominated role in Claudine in 1974 to her fierce performance in Dynasty from 1984 to 1987. She had to crash a Hollywood party to get that role, but she made sure the first major Black character in that show belonged to her. In 2020, her daughter Suzanne Kay found something unexpected. It was a collection of her mother's private diaries. These pages revealed just how lonely Diahann had felt in Hollywood. In the 1950s and 1960s, she was one of the only black stars, and she often felt left out. The diaries told stories of being upstaged and dismissed. They also showed that Diahann had chosen roles carefully, always thinking about how she could help change how black women were seen. One diary entry told how she once crashed an Aaron Spelling party in 1984, just to fight for a role on Dynasty. In 2024, those same diaries became the heart of a documentary called Between Starshine and Clay, made possible by a $4.2 million grant from the Ford Foundation. Suzanne used the entries, old photos, and family videos to tell her mother's story. The film showed how Diahann carried the weight of history with grace and courage. Some of the most heartbreaking pages in those diaries talked about the distance between Diahann and her daughter. She wrote about how she worked 12-hour days while filming Julia, playing a single mother on TV while struggling to be one in real life. She admitted that her 4 marriages and focus on fame left her emotionally drained and often alone. She wished she had done things differently. In her memoir, she had hinted at this guilt, but the diaries made it clear. She knew her actions had opened doors for others, but the cost was high. She stayed in abusive relationships to feel safe and missed important moments in her daughter's life. She once said in an interview that the role of Diahann Carroll had become so big, it swallowed up everything else. These quiet confessions changed how people saw her. Beneath the glamour was a woman who sacrificed deeply to make history.